Welcome to The Feast Life, where we empower you, the modern homeschool mom, to create a life and homeschool you love, one founded on faith, family, freedom, and fun. I'm your host, Julie Ross, creator of the award-winning homeschool curriculum, A Gentle Feast, and a certified Christian life coach. For more information on today's episode and to access my free gift for you, check out thefeastlife.me. Charlotte Mason once said, "Life should be all living, not a mere tedious passing of time." So on this show, we seek to savor the feast of life. Girl, grab your favorite beverage and pull up a chair. You are welcome at this table. Hello, welcome to today's episode of The Feast Life. Today, you are going to listen in on a conversation I had with the lovely Leah Boden, also known as Modern Miss Mason, to discuss her latest adventure in storytelling, a series of beautiful written living biographies for middle grade readers. If you love Charlotte Mason, children's literature, and inspiring true stories, then this conversation is for you. Leah Boden is the author of Tales of Boldness and Faith, a fictional living biography collection for middle readers. With a background in school and Christian ministry, Leah brings a wealth of experience to her mission of resourcing families with living books written for today's reader. After home educating her own 4 children using Charlotte Mason's philosophy, Leah now dedicates her time to equipping and inspiring families to embrace creativity, learning, and connection in their homes and lives. Through her writing, speaking, and community leadership, she encourages parents to rediscover the beauty of education and storytelling. Leah lives with her family and her miniature schnauzer in West Midlands, England. I know you are going to love this conversation. So as Leah would say, get a cup of tea and join us for our chat about her new books about Charlotte Mason and C.S. Lewis. Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Feast Life. I'm your host, Julie Ross, and I am here today with the lovely Leah Boden, who you may also know as Modern Miss Mason, because I think that's how my audience knows you most. But today we're going to talk about a little excursion into the world of children's literature, which is also one of my favorite topics. So you can put Charlotte Mason and children's books together, girl. This is just going to be exciting. So thanks for coming on.
It is. Thanks for inviting me back.
Yeah.
I just love being with you. It's just great. We could talk for hours.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Just get me some tea. My throat's a little from recording all day. Yes. So yeah.
Oh, bless you.
For those of my listeners who don't know you as Modern Miss Mason, I'm going to link to that episode so they can go and listen to it because I know they're going to want to.
Oh, that's great.
But can you just share a little bit of your world of what you're teaching moms about Charlotte Mason, but then also maybe how you got into writing this new book series that we're going to talk about?
Absolutely. Yes, I am Leah Boden, and I home educated my children for 18 years, 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. And I have just in the last few months, really 9 months, last 9 months, wrapped up the title of the practicing home educator. My children are all in either careers or further education, or my youngest has chosen to do her national exams here in the UK in the school system. So I had a very teary finale, really, and I'm still processing that kind of.
Yeah, I think we maybe need to have another conversation about that because that's a fascinating topic too.
I was just going to say, Julie, you'll know about this, but for another time, we should talk about the reality of allowing yourself to grieve seasons of the mother's heart and the season of motherhood. So that happened, and I learned a lot about myself, and so during that time, while I was home educating my children, the pedagogy and philosophy that I caught hold of right at the beginning of my kind of researching of homeschooling and home education, as we call it here, I discovered Charlotte Mason and fell hook, line, and sinker really into her world, her teaching, and became a student of her work myself, but then I immediately wanted to practice her ideas with my children. As I'm sure it was with you, my eldest, who is now fully grown adult working overseas, all this kind of stuff. She was my guinea pig. She has all the stories of me trying out various things, but honestly was even from the beginning when I was figuring stuff out. And all I had a few blogs, I had a
Yep.
few American blogs, and I had 6 pink books, the
Yep.
series, Charlotte Mason's home education series. And I just read the books and took the parts that I understood and really, as a form of narration, put them into practice
Mm.
with my children. And honestly, it was the most life enriching and rewarding 18 years of my life. And the blessing of that, the time that I was doing that, I was able to then begin to, there was a lot of home education was really on the rise in the early 2000s. There were
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody at first in England, but we together began to be trailblazers in this country, and a lot of people catching hold of Charlotte's philosophy. And so I began to teach what I was doing and just share the little bits, like, I'm no expert, but this is what's working. I'm no expert, but this is, and I began to gather groups and communities, and it just grew from there. And really, my whole conviction around it was, and this was not necessarily in reaction to something, this is just who I am and how I was doing it, was this language of how find your freedom within the philosophy.
Mm.
And that was the language that I carried with me personally throughout my home educating years. But then that became the language of what I taught. And people started to catch hold of that and ask me to speak at places, which then was just tumble. I'm not like a snowball collecting snow. I was going to say tumbleweed, but that's the opposite. It's not the word we want. Got a publishing contract, and you can go and listen to our other conversation around Modern Miss Mason. But I put all that practice, my ideas, my experience, and my my teaching from learning her work myself and what it looked like for me into this book, which is called Modern Miss Mason. It has a beautiful butterfly on the front, so you can't miss it. And again, that was just a delight, just incredible. So that's where I'm at right now. We can talk about the next projects and stuff, but I am fresh out of my home educating career and just seeing what post homeschooling looks like. And it's been great. It's been great. I'm
So did
definitely
the
learning a
idea
lot
for
about
these
myself.
books come before? Was this in your mind? Like at some
Yeah.
point here, this season's going to end. What's next? And those ideas for these books started to shape in that.
Yeah. I don't know what it was like in your house, but we just read biographies all the time. And biographies really shaped our history curriculum,
Mm.
which I curated from various forms. And we'd be reading Unstead's Story of Britain, and then whoever he was unveiling to us, I'd be looking for biographies. And what I discovered, Julie, was these 1940s, 1930s, some of them, hardback little biographies that really were what we've termed fictionalized biographies, which really we know as living books.
Yeah.
So they tell the story of a hero in the faith or a person who was a breakthrough in science or whatever, but they add this storytelling nature to it, which then allows our child to immerse themselves in the world of that person.
Yeah.
And then as a Charlotte Mason educator, you then can narrate from that. But even if people are not practicing narration and they don't use that philosophy, these ideas was to be able to put books into people's hands where they can learn about inspirational people in a storytelling way. Yeah, I loved searching for those kind of books. And then I began to speak to my agent about this dream of, you know what, I'd like to have a go at writing these. I think I'm very passionate about modern authors writing living
Yes.
books. I think we
100%.
need to be
Absolutely.
where all the books are falling apart, or they're
Oh my
on your
gosh, yes.
Kindle, or you're looking through historic archives, and there's this kind of narrative around they will always only be the best books, and they are wonderful, but I don't believe that. I do
Yeah.
believe that there are 21st century writers and authors who are writing and producing living books, and sometimes we don't trust them as Charlotte Mason
Yeah.
educators because you don't have to blow the dust off them and buy them from a vintage bookshop or a secondhand bookshop. I thought, you know what, I very humbly walked into this, but I thought, okay, let's pitch for Charlotte's story because I know that I've read the biographies,
Mhm.
the letters. I've sat in the army in the Lake District in Ambleside, poring over boxes of correspondence and pictures, and I've actually had a little sneaky look inside Scale How, which is not open to the public, but it was just the grace of, I don't know how, providence of God, that I got to go inside it, honestly, and I got to put my hand on the banister that she would have put her hand on
Oh,
every
wow.
day, and it was just this amazing moment. And I thought, I can put all that into a book. I can imagine
Mhm.
what this might look like. Yeah. So and then as we pitched for that one, the publishers said, have you got other ideas? Let's do a series. So then we pitched for C.S. Lewis and then Sarah Forbes Bonetta. And so they're all stories that started. One started in fact, two of them really were started in Ireland. Sarah started in West Africa, but they all ended up in England.
Okay.
So really, I'm beginning the series with these English historic stories, and so they're very much so. Sarah's story is around Queen Victoria's time, and
Yes.
you have to find out about that one. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I
And
said I don't know
C.S.
that person, so I was like, I saw your little list of series, I'm like, okay, I definitely know these two a lot, Charlotte Mason and C.S. Lewis. The first two books that are coming out, or by the time this airs, they will be out. But then the third one, I was like, I have never heard of this person in my life. And so I'm like,
Yeah,
is this just like
it's an
an English thing that everyone would know, or was this someone that you learned about
no,
somehow and you're like, this is fascinating, the
mm-mm.
world needs to know about this person?
Yeah,
Okay.
no. Just to tell you a little bit about her story, she was a young child in West Africa and was caught up in the African slave trade. Her village was raided.
Mm.
She witnessed. I don't know if little ears are listening, if people are
Probably,
listening to
so
Selby
we'll keep
Care,
it there. Yeah.
but you can
Bad
imagine she
stuff. Yes.
witnessed that trauma happened
Yes.
in her childhood. And there was a captain, an English captain, Captain Forbes, who he was an abolitionist, and he was over
Mm.
in West Africa trying to plead with this African king to stop this. Anyway,
Mm.
he eventually he saw this little girl who was not being treated well and was about to be just stuff. It's not good. And the king, I think the captain said, what would the queen say if she knew this was happening? What would the queen say? And there was this respect
Mm.
around royalty from different nations.
Mm.
And so he stopped everything, the story goes, and he took the little girl who was called Ina. That was her African name, which means princess.
Mm.
And he gave Ina to the captain and said, take her as a gift to the queen. Oh, I feel
Mm.
very emotional telling this story right now. That's so
It's
funny.
beautiful.
It's his first podcast that I've talked about her.
Mm.
And, you know, he didn't have a choice. The captain didn't have a choice. And so the story begins with her being in a missionary school in Africa and in West Africa, and her being baptized, them changing her name. The cool thing is, and again, this is what I got to really play with the whole narrative of the story. The cool thing was that they named her Sarah, which also means princess. So they carried her identity through, even though they gave her this Western name, which was very common what they were doing
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So then her life really was between England and West Africa. And this story of her humanity, her courage, her very normal childhood emotions and dealing with stuff, but also this extraordinary courage she became this example and picture of colonialism and look what we can do
Mm.
if we brought. And so I try as much as possible to really share the real history, and that's really important. But also paint a picture of hope. And yeah, I won't tell you the ending. They're biographies, so they all have sad endings. But my husband was like, "Yeah," because he's an author as well. He's writing like cool Christian books for teenagers, and he's, "Your books, everybody dies."
That's funny.
Yes.
You could end it early or at a happier moment if you wanted to, but
Talk about this full emotional, full body experience of writing, like researching
that's
for
what I was
these
going to
books.
ask you, because it's not just like writing fantasy where it's all in your head. Like,
No.
tell me about your kind of research. Charlotte Mason, I'm assuming you could probably just write about her without having to do the research, even though it's really fun. But what was that kind of research process like? And then how do you take facts and actual history, but then come up with, ooh, what would have they have felt in this moment or said in this moment, and turn it into fiction too.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. And actually, Charlotte's book took me a long time. I thought that I did know a lot. I could tell you her story.
Hmm.
I could even go through the timeline with you and just say this happened then. Da, da, da. But because I'm writing this for middle grade kids, so I want them to
Hmm.
be caught up in the story, but also
Yeah.
I want them to learn from it. So you're constantly looking at the timeline. So I basically took the timeline and all my research and reading, and then you look at what else, you ask the question, what else was going on in the
Mm.
UK or in the world at that
Hmm.
time? So that's a
That's
big
good.
question. So then I'm
Yeah.
lining up with history. Okay, this is what's going on. Would that, and it's interesting because I've got some beta readers reading Ina's book at the moment.
Okay.
One lady who speaks Yoruba, and
Oh,
Ina was
wow.
from the Yoruba tribe.
That's
So
amazing.
I've got really amazing people
Yeah.
doing the work with me. And she was like looking at some of a term that I'd use, and she said, that's modern Yoruba
Mm.
language. That's not what would have been spoken. I was like, wow, this is
Wow.
why I need you.
Yeah,
I want
seriously,
it
what
to
a
be as
gift.
authentic.
Yeah.
I know it is a gift. So you look at you get the research, you do the timeline, you ask the question, what else was going on in whatever country you're
Hmm.
talking about at that time? What was happening in the political realm? What was happening in the UK? You're looking at royalty, who was running the
Hmm.
country, what was life like, what else was going on? And you look at all that. So in Charlotte's story, I was really digging, and I found this really interesting part where it seems so tiny, but it was fascinating to me that it all matched up. So there's three things that matched up. She was living at Scale House, so she'd fresh, quite new. So she would have been late 40s, early 50s when she arrived at early 50s when she arrived at Scale House in Ambleside.
Really?
And
I didn't
this, for the
realize she
people who
was
don't
that
know,
old then. That's
oh, so
old. I
that's the
mean,
thing.
not
That's
me because I'm
yeah.
there, but like back then that was
Yeah,
old.
I me too. I turned 50 this year, so I'm like, oh, I'm Charlotte's age when she went to the Lake District.
Wow.
So Julie, the whole story building up to that, I tell the whole story
Yeah.
before that because we know her as Charlotte Mason from the Lake District, but
Yeah.
actually that was
There's
the
a lot
second
half
part.
of her
Well, that
life.
was the
Wow.
last 3
Yeah.
decades of her life. So
Wow.
she's moved into Scale Howe, and for those who don't know, that's her school of education. And that particular year, Lake Windermere froze over. Now,
Wow.
this was historic because it's only done that a few times in the past couple of 100 years.
Yeah.
I didn't think you've seen
Yeah,
Windermere.
I have
I
been
didn't
there
think
once.
it
Yeah.
could freeze over. So it froze over,
Yeah.
and it was the timeline just matched perfectly.
Wow.
And then I realized it was the time when Arthur Ransom, author of
Mhm.
Swallows and Amazons, he grew up in that area. So
Yeah.
he would have been a child around 10 living in the
Mm.
area when the lake froze over and Charlotte was living at Scale Howe. So I won't tell you
Mm.
anymore, but I merged those three
Okay.
things. And there's a really cool, people have to find it.
Yeah.
And I merged those three kind of historic layers.
Mm.
So I even found a newspaper article that reported the lake has frozen over and
Oh,
people were
wow.
ice skating on it. So it was just so fun. And you
Yeah.
find this little nugget, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to weave that
Yeah.
into that sentence there. I'm going to weave that into there. So it was a different kind of writing than I've ever done before. At some points I thought, I can't do this. I don't know if
Mm.
I'm the person to do this. And something would encourage me and push me through. And then you look at them, and for
This is
those
so
listening, I'm
cute.
holding up, you look at them and they're really small. Like,
So long.
this is how much work.
How many
So I've
hours?
basically
Yeah.
written, I mean, they're 30,000 words, they're 12 chapters. So
Okay.
they're a
Yeah.
great homeschool book. But I spent 18 months writing 3 books, and it has been my whole
Wow.
life really for the past decade. So yeah, and then you get to be creative with it. So I have to ask the question. So some of my, again, my beta readers, they were reading it to their children, which was cool because that's what I
Yeah.
wanted. So I've got all these
Yeah.
reviews from kids,
Oh, that's awesome.
and I'd get messages from some of them saying, did that actually happen? And I'd say, it could
Yeah.
have. It
Yeah.
maybe. And they were like, no, it did not. I'm like, what do you think? So that'll be fun. Just, I'm sure we'll have kids going, did that you can tell what's real and what's not.
I think that's
Yeah.
great. Like it makes the person so much, it brings them to life. And
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
even if it's something that is in your imagination, the kids can imagine it as well. And so it's not just
Yeah.
they did this on this date and all that we talk about with living
Right.
books. But I'm so excited, I have to be honest, for the Charlotte Mesa one, because I feel like
Yes.
there is a picture book that came out recently and it was very beautifully
Yeah.
done about her life. But I'm like, I have teenagers and I feel like I've been
Mm.
talking about this person like their entire lives.
I know.
For
I
them to
know.
be able to, and I'm interested too, because I feel like what you're saying, and for moms to read it as well, because yeah, we know about the PNEU and her programs and like the things that she did for homeschooling, but there was so much more to her life that made her, and to me, it's
So
such
much
an
more.
amazing, inspiring story to be a single woman, to be an orphan, to
Yeah.
live in that time period where that wasn't something people did, and then start
No.
this revolution of education.
Yeah.
I'm excited for
And
kids to
that's
learn about
and
her.
that's I open Angel, so the book's called Angel Orphan, Charlotte's story. And I open the book by talking to the reader and just saying, you may have heard this name banded around your house or your
Yeah.
school,
Yeah.
and now's your chance to get to know who she was. And so the story starts when she's traveling from Ireland over to England. She's around, I think she's about 9 years old. Yeah, she's 9 years old.
Okay.
And so the book is pitched at middle graders, but I like to read middle grade books.
Oh yeah.
So it's pitched, so it starts at the kind of lower end of what the big book's pitched at. So a child could see, okay, this is who she is.
Mm.
And
Oh,
so
that's cool. Yeah.
yeah, and there's so many, and it's interesting because I know a lot about her life. And
Yeah.
there's elements that she was so human and from pretty broken family
Hmm.
background, very
Yeah.
complicated, I'll say
Yeah.
complicated background. And some of what that I didn't put in the book because it's just very like, how do you explain that to a child? And working with my editor
Hmm.
is like, you don't need, we can lean on that little bit there and then take that bit
Hmm.
out, and it's just pitching it right and what's
Yeah.
appropriate. But yeah, it was just so basically like you and I were just saying, as educators, we know her life and her teaching and her the impact of her work in her kind of 40s, 50s, six, and she died early 80s. We know that bit because we
Hmm.
know the impact of her words and we know who she was through her writing. But she was actually a very
Mm.
private person.
Hmm.
A
I
lot of
heard
the
that.
letters she wrote to other people we don't have, they were destroyed or something,
Mm.
I don't know, but yeah. So there's some correspondence, but it's interesting. So she was, yeah, she's a little bit of a mystery in so many ways, but in other
Hmm.
ways I think we get to see her soul and we get to see the internal workings of her life through how she sees childhood and children and education. And what I tried to do in the book was build that throughout, because she was an apprentice teacher at 13. That's wild, isn't it? So from the age of, we know her as, her life and her mission and her call was for the children's sake.
Mm.
But what people don't understand is that she actually began to practice that from a teenager. So it really was a whole
All
life.
right. Today's episode is brought to you by A Gentle Feast. A Gentle Feast offers a complete living books curriculum, an award winning early reading program, and more tools to equip you to apply Charlotte Mason's timeless philosophy into your modern homeschool. Go to agentlefeast.com to check it out. Smooth and easy days are closer than you think. Yeah.
She's amazing. We know that.
Yeah, but I feel like I want my kids to know that too. So how did you land on
Yeah.
I want to write stories for middle grades, or did that just come about? Oh,
Oh,
can you
you
hear me?
froze. Sorry, say that again. You froze.
How, oh,
You
yeah.
froze for a
I
minute.
accidentally hit the volume button on my keyboard. How did you land on writing for a middle grade audience?
I think that was more of a kind of, I knew the kind of living book that I wanted to write.
Okay.
And it was the publisher who said, we were toing and froing, and they said, this sounds like it would sit in the middle grade section. And I use intelligent language and intelligent
Mm.
ideas. Kids may have to look words up in dictionaries, or they may have to, and
Yeah.
sometimes my editor would say, remember you're writing for middle graders. I'm like, but honestly, it could be read by anybody. And
Yeah.
also for younger children. I think the only
Read
caveat,
aloud
the
kind of
only thing I
thing.
would say, sorry,
To read aloud to younger children.
yes, so you could
Right.
read it aloud to younger children, but I would say, which a lot of wise mothers do, is just to pre-read it first,
Hmm.
because there are very sad elements. I don't hold back on the
Mm-hmm.
death and the disappointment
Mm-hmm.
and mistreatment. So those kind of things I talk about, because a lot of children experience that as well, don't they? But I talk about hope and redemption and their faith journey as well. And so they all touch on the individual's faith journey. And of course,
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis, we get this great him having this encounter with Jesus in a
Mm-hmm.
sidecar on the way to the
I bet that
zoo.
was
I
fun to
mean,
write about. Yeah.
so fun, so fun. Yeah. I
Did you
mean,
travel
he's
to
was,
Oxford and live there for a little bit
yeah,
to get the feels?
yeah,
So
yeah.
jealous.
Yeah, I'm like an hour from Oxford, so I do hang
Okay.
out there quite a bit. And we'll go to Magdalen College.
That's
Yeah, do
awesome.
all the.
Crazy.
I didn't go to Cambridge where he spent a lot of time. I don't touch on that too much, but it is really focused on Ireland
Mm-hmm.
and his relationship with his brother. And then there's the when he was in the war, and then obviously the storytelling life. I it was fun writing about when they had evacuees come to the house in the
Mm-hmm.
kilns. And I went to I've been to the kilns a couple of times, but I went and did an official tour. So this was funny. I was in the middle of writing the book, and I'd been reading C.S. Lewis's books for a year before I started writing the book. And
Okay.
then so I'd just been reading books that he had written. And then the following year I started to read biographies and
Okay.
essays and just build up my knowledge of who he was. And then I went to the kilns and we had a guided tour. So I was with a couple of friends from Texas and my husband, and we got to the end of the tour and my husband looked at me. He said, "Did you know everything she said?" I was like, "Yep."
Yep.
Could you have could you have done the tour? I was like, "Yeah, I have been studying for this for 2 years." But what was great about that was slowly going around the kilns and then thinking as an author, thinking as a
Yeah.
children's author, okay, what could have happened
Different.
there?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was that? And I can describe the rooms and I can describe the
Mm-hmm.
fireplace and this wardrobe they had a
Yeah.
wardrobe there, but so that was fun. Yeah.
That is so fun. And so for the books, you talk about these individuals' kind of faith journey as well.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the way that you handled it because I feel like Charlotte Mason would talk about how you don't want it to be like over moralistic or shoving it down their throat or like
Right.
that kind of thing. So, how did you handle the way that you were writing about their faith journeys in these books?
Yeah. I wrote about their faith journey as if as it was part of them. So just as much as I was writing about their personality and their interests, their faith was so much a part of who they were,
Mm.
or their faith journey. C.S. Lewis, again, it's not till his adult life that this all changes, but
Yeah,
you can
right.
see the pattern of that happening
Mm.
throughout his life.
Hmm.
For Charlotte, her mother was a Catholic, her dad was a Quaker, and so you've got this combination of kind of tradition and liturgy, and then you've got, I described that a little bit,
Interesting. Yeah.
and the Quaker tradition was very much they became teachers. So really,
Yeah.
even though
True.
she became Anglican, and that was the practice that she was a part of here in England until the end of her life. She had these two traditions that actually formed who she was and influenced who she
Mm.
was. Yeah, and so she went into the Quaker tradition of teaching. That's what she became. It's
Mm.
very delicate. There's scripture in there that there's a little bit of reflection on them knowing scripture and being able to say it.
Mm.
There's some scenes in church buildings. There's some prayers. There's some hymns. Again, all things that Charlotte Mason educators can use. Yeah, so just everything's very gentle, really, and it's just threaded through their story like it would have been. It's not like I was right. C.S. Lewis, there was somewhat a radical conversion when he actually said yes at that moment, and actually
Yeah,
his
right.
heart turned. But yet there was lots of religious undertones all the way through his life, and the influences and the conversations and
Right.
everything. So
100%.
his story is definitely heavier on that,
Mm-hmm.
because that that's what formed him and
Excuse me.
informed his life and work. So yeah, but yeah, generally that it's quite gently put through. And as a reader, as a reading that, or as a mother reading aloud, or father
Mm-hmm.
reading aloud, or grandparent reading aloud, they're nice little things to pick up on and to be able to research and I wonder what that
Mm-hmm.
looked like, or I wonder what that hymn sounds like.
Yeah, some rabbit trails there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I totally
Yeah.
agree with you about the point that you made about we need modern authors writing living biographies. What was the series you found? I was thinking of Landmark Biographies, but that was here in the US. Did
Yeah,
you
no,
guys have those
I
too?
know Landmark.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look. I've recently been sorting through
But
books and
they're
stuff.
so
So I,
hard
I think
to recommend to people because it's like, good luck finding it.
yeah, there's one called I was about to say Tales of Boldness and Faith, but that's my series. Yeah, do
I
you know off
highly
the top of my
recommend that
head,
one.
Julie? I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I don't have them right next to me. I usually do. Let me
Oh,
see if I've
okay.
got one here.
No, I was just
But
curious.
yeah, there are a couple of. Let me just see if these are them. But I have got a couple that I'm trying to. I want to say something like a windmill series, or there's one called Faith and something. I bet people will be listening and shouting the answers to us, but it's like,
You can get back to me.
um,
We can put whatever in the show notes if you remember what it
yeah,
is.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
no big
Let's do
deal.
it. I'll find them. I have got them written down somewhere. I've got a list of them, but they are hard to get hold of, and you really have to search on Etsy and
Oh,
secondhand bookshops. And when I found them, I was like, and I did. There were some that I managed to find quite a few of, and there's loads of great. YWAM have got.
oh
I
yeah.
forgot they've got a
The
whole
missionary
series,
series. Yeah,
haven't
we've
they?
read them. Yeah.
Yeah, and the couple who write those, I'm so sorry, I can't remember their names, but they are prolific. They're coming out all
Oh
the
yeah.
time, and there's tons. I didn't use those particularly. I just didn't really know about them until
Yeah.
the end of our home educating years. I know Greta Escreet loves those. She uses those. So there are lots of, and biography as a genre for children is becoming more and more popular. So if for
Mm.
younger children even, there's like board books
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
can get stacks and stacks of them
Yeah.
where they're just, now a lot of them, and I'm referring to the sort of board books and things that at this point, a lot of them are information. So they
Mhm.
will,
Right.
and
Right.
they
Right.
are
Right.
biography, like this is this person, this is what they did. And great if you want to just have some information. And obviously, what we want is
Yes.
knowledge. We want to be able to engage with the person's life and story. And the beauty of having 20 years under my belt of studying Charlotte
Yeah.
Mason's work and many of those practicing her ideas was that for her book particularly, and even for the others because it's their living stories, was that I was always asking the question, could I narrate from this?
I
Could I put it
love
on
that's awesome.
held back? And that was a great, I mean, it was a
That
great
is
way. So
great.
I
Yeah.
this is what I would love to see, like this kind of, I'd love to see more and more over the next 10, 20 years. M- Parents who have home educated using the
Mm,
Charlotte Mason philosophy starting to be inspired to write living books,
I love
because
that.
the next generation can't
Yeah.
keep looking for
No.
used books.
Yeah.
There's only so much you
Yeah.
can hold the pages
Yes.
together, and we love them. We love the smell of them. We love them on our shelves. We love to Instagram them. But actually,
Yeah.
who is continuing to tell the story? So it feels like a privilege to get this ball
Mm,
rolling. I do feel like I've had a lot of good input. I've got a good team working on them with me at Moody, but I hope people will trust me with these
oh,
books and with
100%.
these words, because I've thrown everything into them and I've loved it. I've loved it. It's been a wonderful experience, and I feel closer to these characters than
Yeah.
ever.
Oh, yeah. They become like your friends, right? Because you've been writing their
Yes,
intimate thoughts, all kinds of
I
things about
know.
them, right? They come to life. But
I know all their secrets.
I love what you said about homeschool parents writing living books. I have never thought about that. I've thought about writing a book myself, but fiction. But what a beautiful gift because again,
Yes.
we've have had these living ideas poured into us, right? And we have chewed on
Yeah.
these at the same time our kids are. And so they've
Right.
shaped and changed us as people. And
Yeah.
then you go through that season, which I'm going to bring you back on because I have two adults and three high schoolers left. So I'm almost at the empty nest phase of life, even though I don't like
Yeah.
that. I don't like that term. But to have a real conversation about it because I don't think it's something people talk about a lot or prepare for. But then also of the, okay, God, you've given me this gift, you've given me this time, right? What's next? And so I
Yeah.
love that you've taken
Right.
it. One, you've helped so many moms with your Modern Miss Mason stuff. Are you still doing with stuff with that as well?
Yeah. Yeah. So I
Okay.
run a membership, and
Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
I'm speaking a couple of times in the States. Yeah. I do all
Okay.
sorts and coaching. And so I do all that as well, continuing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's such a
Yeah.
gift
It's
that you're
great.
able to help the moms, but now you're giving another gift to the children of being able to read really great living books as well. I have a question. So I have to ask this because Charlotte Mason person about how the education that these people had shaped them. So
Yes.
the different between Charlotte Mason's education versus Lewis's versus I don't know the other Sarah's educational background, but like how did their education shape who they became? Because obviously we believe it does, right?
Yeah, it just so happens that the three that we're starting this series with had a lot of education at home,
Whoa!
which is so cool, isn't it? So they all had a mixture of home education and school education. Now, I don't know if they would have used the term homeschooling or home
Right. Of
education.
course not. Yeah.
So Charlotte's early years were basically her mum reading books to her.
Mm,
It wasn't until they moved to England that she really got into school
mm,
and yeah, began and loved it. She loved it. She got in there. But yeah, we do know that her early influences were like Robinson Crusoe and Waverley, Book of Gernstein's. And so I mention all those stories I
okay.
name all those books
Yeah.
in the story. Lewis had a lot of education at home, again from his mother.
Mm-hmm.
Jack, actually, I call him Jack all
Yeah.
the way through. Lewis is it feels very academic, doesn't it? Jack, we'll
Yeah.
go with Jack.
Yeah.
Jack had a lot of education at home and did not want to go to school because he saw the impact of school on his brother. And his mother did a lot of the teaching, and they also would have a tutor come in as well. So he did have a lot of his formation was at home with books, and I think she taught them Latin and languages and just lovely
Mm,
stories. And unfortunately, his mother passed away when he was young
yeah.
and everything changed. And so they had then he also had some really rough experiences at boarding school.
Hmm.
Yeah, very difficult. And then Ina's story, so Sarah Forbes Bonetta, she also so she had a mixture of missionary schools, which were generally run by white missionaries from, a lot of them were run by white missionaries from England.
Mm,
It's so interesting. That whole thing is,
yeah.
yeah, anyway, we won't go down that. But anyway, and then, but when she got to England and she lived with two families. One was the Forbes family, and they taught her at home. And then the second
Mm,
family, the Sean family, they also taught her at home. And they just
mm.
felt that was the right way to educate her. In between that, she was starting to get sick because of the English weather. We all get sick. Not surprised. Bless her.
Yes.
The Queen Victoria, who was her ward, who was funding her life really,
Mhm.
she gave advice. She needs to go to Sierra Leone. She needs to go to Freetown. We'll educate her there. She can go.
Well,
And so she did that for a stint in between, came back and was educated at home again. So there's one scene where you can imagine, Julie, I just go to town with, I had some nature studying, some Shakespeare,
I love
and
it.
because they would have been doing all
Yes,
that. And there's one
100%.
bit
Yeah.
where the Sean family were quite a big family, and they all go out for a nature walk, and it's a lovely English summer's day, and they take a butterfly net and they're
Mhm.
walking. And I just paint this picture that a lot of children would be able to relate to.
Yeah.
There's one part where I can't remember which family she was with at this point, but they're reading Shakespeare's Othello, and they read a part, and then the mother says, "Tell me back what you heard." So we've
Mhm.
got
Yeah,
narration
oh, I
in
love
there.
it.
Like we've got it all in there, which was so fun to do. Yeah. So lots of them. So I think your question was how their early education, how their education formed who they were.
Mhm.
I would have said the good and the bad, so the negative and the positive. So for Jack, he thought fondly and remembered fondly his mother
Yeah.
reading with him and educating him, had a very rough time at boarding school. But then he went to a tutor. His brother also went to a tutor, Kirkpatrick, and he lived with him and his wife. And he was incredible, and really the huge formation, intellectual formation into who we know him as
Hmm.
now, as a was, that happened there. So a lot of the
Mm.
positive formation, I would say, in all their stories came from home or
Yeah.
the smaller
Yeah.
setting where
Uh-huh.
there was more one-on-one, more attention to dialogue, good reading
Hmm.
and response. Whereas the difficulties and some of the character forming, I
Yeah.
guess, you
Yeah.
came from their experiences in institutions. So there's some
Mm.
interesting overlaps in all the books. And I didn't realize that. I didn't plan for that. And
Yeah,
as I was
yeah.
writing them, I was like, wow, in all three, there's the theme of displacement where they've all
Mm,
had to move
yeah,
as a
that's true. I didn't think
child
about
from
that.
one
Yeah.
place to
Hmm.
somewhere else. And so that theme is pretty heavy in all three of
Yeah.
them, that how we respond to change. And I hope,
Mm,
for some children, if they've had to move cities or
hmm.
countries, or they've had something's happened in the family and it's shifted their life completely, that there is hope,
Mm,
and they'll be able to see how these children and young people in these stories dealt with that displacement. But it can send you so all it throws up everything. And
mm,
Jack's story, he was living in this lovely house in Ireland and then was sent to England to this awful boarding
mm.
school,
Yeah.
which was eventually shut down. It
Oh,
was so
well.
bad, and everything was different. And yeah, it was, you can
Mm.
read about it. But yeah, bless him.
Yeah.
You do feel for them. Saying what we were just saying earlier about becoming friends with them. I remember Charlotte's was the first book I finished, and I remember writing the final chapter and crying. And I was
Oh.
like, oh, she's gone.
Oh gosh. That's how I feel sometimes when I read a really good book. I'm like, wait, I don't want this to end.
I know. And I was just like,
Oh.
wow. And it, even though, and it was I'd done this. I didn't, she did die.
Yeah, right.
We all know that.
Shocker.
But the richness and beauty of her life, and how she was surrounded at the end, and
Hmm.
she worked. Honestly, Julie, she was like working the day before she died.
Oh,
She was like
I don't doubt that
she was
100%. Yeah.
honestly
The hardest
responding
working
to letters,
person
and
ever.
they were carrying
Wow.
her around.
Yeah.
They would sit her by a window so she could look out,
Yeah.
and she was responding to letters. What, that just
Wow.
broke my heart. I was like, wow.
Was she still
So
grading exams then? When did that?
she probably was,
I
honestly.
told
Yeah.
somebody that yesterday, and they're like, she actually read all of these exams in front
Yeah,
of them. I'm like, yeah,
all of them. Yeah.
it's just
And
mind
she would
blowing.
write notes, and she would know the children's names,
Yes.
and yeah, it was all in. There was just no, she was all in. That was her life's work. And there's
Mm-hmm.
no, yeah, and what people wrote about her, if you've read In Memoriam, the
Yeah.
In Memoriam, I mean, there's lots of In Memoriams, but about her life. Yeah. And I've captured some of that in the book as well, just how people saw her and how children saw her.
Mm.
It's just beautiful. Yeah.
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 I'm so excited for my audience to get to read these. I know that they're excited too because
I
these are
hope so.
people that they know and have come to love as
Yeah.
well, and then get to introduce your children to, like, I feel like I am, like, honestly, like introducing them to one of my friends.
That's
This
right.
is my friend Charlotte that I've spent the last 20 years with. Well, you can meet
Somebody
her
was
too,
telling,
so you know what I'm
yeah,
talking
I know.
about.
So, somebody was telling me recently that their child went to maybe like a co-op, a Charlotte Mason co-op, and they'd been going for a while, and they came back and said to their mom, who is this Charlotte Mason? And she'd
Yeah,
been teaching them that way for years.
yeah,
Actually, yes, he is exactly the person I've written this
yes.
book for.
Yeah, it was really funny because once at a homeschool convention, one of the kids that uses a general feast came up and he was like, "Are you Charlotte Mason?" Like, no,
I
that's
know.
not me.
I've been asked that. I've been asked that before. It's so hilarious. And I've got the British accent.
Yeah, like,
Are you Charlotte? No.
no, nope, not at all. I can't. But I don't know if you knew that my one daughter, when she graduated from high school for her senior trip, so I have two adult children, but when they graduated high school, I was like, we're going to go on a trip because I deserve a trip because I have educated you this whole time. And then we're also
Yes.
celebrating your graduation. So I let them pick where they wanted to go. My one daughter picked England and we went to Oxford. It was amazing. And I was like, can we take a day to go up to Ambleside? And it was just so fun just to experience it with her and having her, like,
Yeah.
read these
Yeah.
books and do these things. And it was a really sweet time. This book will be out when this episode airs so they can get it on Amazon, all the book things. Where else can they connect with you?
Yes. I'm Monomis Mason on all social media, but I've got my website, leahboden.com. Everything is that's the signposting place, really. So
Okay.
if you want to come and find me. So my membership is called the Collective, the Modern Miss Mason Collective. And so we've got book clubs and workshops and all sorts of goodies on there. Yeah. So I'm still doing coaching and mentoring and helping
Yeah.
people outwork as a practitioner of the Charlotte Mason philosophy. So that's good fun. And yeah, these should be anywhere where that books are sold. Definitely in North America. Very easy to get hold of, but
Okay.
they're coming everywhere. They just take a bit longer to come everywhere else.
Yes. Will they be in the UK too? Will you do some stuff
Oh yeah,
locally? Okay.
they take a little bit longer. Some places have got them already here, but I was just somebody from New Zealand was asking me
Oh,
when
wow.
will we have it. So I was thinking the publishing company, and they get there. They will be there eventually. But I think, and if you pre-order, that triggers the ordering for the
Printing.
person
Yeah.
who's selling them. So
Okay.
that's why authors are always going on about pre-ordering.
Yeah.
It's not just for the numbers, but it actually helps
I didn't know that.
people
Okay.
stock the books up. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, these are beautiful stories, very well written. Congratulations. It's, I'm sure, a big jump
Thank
from
you.
what you've been doing, but you could tell that your heart and your soul and much research and love went into the stories. So thank you for doing that.
Yes, a lot. Yeah.
I was so grateful for you. And I think it's so cool what you're talking about them having some sort of home education at some point. I think the students, especially
Yeah,
my audience, will really, because it's hard to find stories of kids. You got like Abraham Lincoln and Thomas Edison, and I think that's about it. Like that, and most stories
I
don't
know.
touch on that part of their lives, right? It's like all their
Yeah,
accomplishments, but they don't talk about the Wright brothers some as well. But for kids to see, oh, there's other people who I can relate to. I
yeah,
can relate to this person in the story because they're experiencing me, or like you're talking about them going on nature walks. We're not so weird. Like these people are doing
I know.
it.
Absolutely.
So I think that'll be
Yeah,
really
and
fun.
I think it was a lot more common than we realized. It just
Yeah.
didn't look like it. It wasn't
Yeah.
labeled like we label it today. But yeah, so hopefully
Yeah.
children will like seeing a few things that they'll be able to relate to. That was my plan. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll put all the links in the show notes. So thanks again for coming and talking.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak enthusiastically about this project.
I can absolutely.
Thank
Thank you for joining me for today's conversation. Wasn't Leah such an inspiration? I just love her story so much. So, here are some key takeaways from today's episode. Number one, there's never a perfect time to start. Waiting for the right moment will keep you stuck. Leah shared how she built her business in the midst of homeschooling, pregnancy, and other life challenges. Number two, homeschool moms have CEO potential. The skills used to manage your homeschool, big picture planning, problem solving, and adaptability are the same skills needed to run a successful business. Number three, overcome fear by taking action. You don't need to have all the answers before you start. The key is testing, learning, and adjusting as you go. Number four, integrate, don't separate. Your homeschool and your business can work together, not against each other. Leah shares how she includes her kids in the entrepreneurial journey, giving them hands-on business experience. And last but not least, build with legacy in mind. Whether you're just starting homeschooling or you're just starting a business, think long term. How is what you're doing today going to impact future generations? This episode was packed with wisdom, some real life practical strategies, and I hope it will give you the confidence for whatever you feel called to do. Thanks so much for listening. Hey there, Julie Ross here. I just wanted to say thank you for listening to today's episode. If you like this show, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a positive review in iTunes. This really does help people learn about the podcast. And each month I will pick a winner to receive a free gift. Don't forget to check out all the free resources we created for you at thefeastlife.me. Thank you.